Are you looking for a truly unique experience this weekend? Get away to Orlando for our uniquely eventful spring and discover all the ways you can make the most of every moment. From unforgettable concerts to one-of-a-kind festivals to the debut of epic new rides and attractions, you'll find something for everyone. And Visit Orlando is your guide to enjoying all the season has to offer. To start planning your uniquely eventful spring, head to visitorlando.com today.
Hi, my name is what? My name is my name is it's named Sadie. Hi, my name is my name is what? My name is it's named Sadie. Hi, my name is what? Excuse me. My name is it's named Sadie. Can I have the attention of the class for 1 second?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Source Material Comics Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Starcher, and this evening we're getting into a new book like we do just about every week here on the podcast. This time we're going to be talking Shazam, the Monster Society of Evil. Came out in 2007, written and drawn by Jeff Smith of Bone fame. If you guys know about that great little comic called Bone, and I don't know if there's comic strips, but I definitely know I own a small, like, digest size. I don't even know if it's digest size, but it's a smaller type graphic novel of the Bone series. Jeff Smith has been pretty well known for some of the stuff that he's put in that comic. But now he's gone over to DC here, and he's going to take a shot at the world's mightiest mortal. That's right, Captain Marvel, DC's Captain Marvel. So just to kind of set this straight for anybody that's tuning in that doesn't know much about comic books, there are indeed, at one time, there were two Captain Marvels. We have the Captain Marvel, which we spoke with earlier, or spoke with. Yeah, we spoke with him. We had him on here.
We previously interviewed Captain Marvel about feminism and the world today.
It was amazing. Great interview. But no, it was, we talked about Captain Marvel, Higher, Faster, Further, More, and that was Marvel's iteration. Yeah, Mark Radulich has to restrain himself here. But that was Marvel's iteration of Captain Marvel, and this is going to be now DC's Captain Marvel that we're going to be talking about, the Big Red Cheese. So joining me to talk about this book tonight, my good friend from the Unspoken Decade, and I believe we're going to be putting a rap group together here, Chris Armstrong, and it's going to be called Bone Thuggies in Harmony.
This is the first time hearing of it, so...
Yeah, I was starting to feel left out of whatever inside joke this is, but apparently Chris doesn't get it either.
Bone Thuggies in Harmony.
I just wasn't prepared for it.
Chris, are you ready to talk some Captain Marvel tonight?
Shazam.
And the patriarch of the Radulich in Broadcasting Network, Mark Radulich. He has got 90% less butt legging tonight. What do you say, Mark?
Well, let me ask my wife, Melissa. Should we skip the butt legging tonight and just go straight to sleep? The butt legging.
Oh, she has no idea.
I'm out of the loop on this too.
She's very confused.
Yeah, last week's episode,
there was a lot of butt legging.
We got into a discussion about Captain Marvel, Plastic Man, and then butt legging happened. So yeah, you'll have to check out the gag reel. At least fast forward to the last, I think, like 3 minutes of the show. That's where things.
That's funny stuff. Right. I listened to it earlier.
The old gag reel. So we're getting into Shazam. Or Captain Marvel, Shazam, the Monster Society of Evil. I'll be switching back and forth, I'm sure, because I'm not used to calling him one or the other. Bear with me. But Mark, we'll start.
I call him Old Tomato Face.
Old Tomato Face. I don't think I've ever seen him referred to that, and I think you're making shit up. Hey, April Fools. Tell me, Mark Radulich. I mean,
Sir.
Have you read much with the Big Red Cheese Captain Marvel in it?
In recent years, yes. He plays a fairly significant role in the Injustice comic. He's shown up in different things that I've read. He has kind of a weird relationship with Superman in some of the things that I've read. As a kid, I think he showed up in some of the cartoons that I watched. As far as having his own series, I don't think I've read anything. I think this might be the first actual comic I've ever read with him in it. This is the first comic I've read with him in it where he was the central figure, like it was his comic.
Okay. Artist C.C. Beck and writer Bill Parker created the character in 1939. Captain Marvel first appeared in Wiz Comics number 2, cover dated February 1940. That is 1939. We're talking 80 years now. That's amazing. So Chris Armstrong, Captain Marvel, did you read a lot with this guy in it back when you were reading, or you know much about him?
Not really. I'm pretty sure this Monster Society of Evil was the first solo story of his I read, and that was when it was originally released. I knew who he was through his association with the Justice Society and other DC books. He would often show up in a big crossover or whatever, but I was never that interested in him. But when this came out, I'd never read Bone, so I was really curious to see Jeff Smith on a DC book. So I remember picking up the first issue. I don't think I ever finished it, because when I was rereading it for this podcast, I was like, I don't remember most of this stuff. So that was really my first experience really focusing on a Captain Marvel story. And then I've been reading the Shazam stuff since the New 52 happened. Jeff Johns writing that stuff.
Pretty good.
The reintroduction of Shazam was in some backup stories in Justice League for a while. Mm-hmm. I think they later released it as like its own trade paperback, and it was a pretty lengthy story. When it was Jeff Johnson and Gary Frank, I liked it a lot. The new Shazam series that's on up to issue 4 or 5 right now, a little less impressed with that one. Not that it's bad, but
how are they handling Shazam? Because the movie seems to be handling, which is why we're doing this book, by the way. The movie seems to be handling it where essentially it's big with superpowers. Yeah. Where it's still Billy Batson, but it's Billy Batson all grown up and buff. Whereas my understanding of Shazam, Captain Marvel, and you see it in this book, is he's its own entity, and he shares memories with Billy Batson, but he's like still a dude. And it was the same thing with Injustice. He was a very like black and white kind of, very naive, very innocent. Like if you think Superman is the world's biggest Boy Scout, Captain Marvel's even worse. But you don't necessarily get a sense that somewhere in there is Billy Batson until he changes back into Billy Batson. The stuff that you're reading now, is that how they're handling it? Where he's still a dude?
The Shazam book that's going on right now and the one that was in the backup issues of backup stories from the issues of Justice League. That's I think what they're basing the movie on.
Oh, is that it's big with superheroes powers?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Because until I started reading this Shazam Monster Society of Evil again, I'd kind of forgotten that it hasn't always been that way. That he has his own personality separate from Billy. Personally, I like it better the way it is now, where he basically just has the powers, but he's still a kid. But that kind of conflicts with having the wisdom of Solomon and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's not really the way the character was created. Look, I get why the producers and Jeff Johns are doing the movie, and I don't want to distract too much from the book, but I get, like, when they were sitting around like, we need to make some DC movies. Okay, well, they can't all be grimdark like Batman, and we don't want to keep doing Snyder movies. Okay, let's do Shazam. That's a fun one. And someone says like, oh, like what if a little kid suddenly became an adult male and had superpowers? Great, run with it. Mm-hmm. Like, I get why they did it in the movies, because it was also be way too confusing if he was like a regular guy. If he was the way the old comics had portrayed him, I think it would confuse the audience. So like I get it. It's a simple premise. It's what if a child has superpowers? Got it. Moving on. But it's not the way the character was designed.
I think a lot of things are different. I mean, it seems like he's been pretty fluid, like going all the way back to his origins through when DC took control of the character. There are a lot of different versions of Captain Marvel, it seems like.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to say, the other big event, if you guys want to maybe check out, we actually did a podcast here on Source Material that involved Captain Marvel, was Kingdom Come. And that was a huge spotlight on Captain Marvel. And even though it was kind of an alternate universe, Elseworlds take on him, that he was a major player in that. So check that out. And all right, well, Mark already kind of covered why we're doing this book. I'll go ahead and get into the synopsis, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the characters and some of the talking points of the book. All right, here we go. Orphaned and homeless, young Billy Batson is trying to turn his luck around when one night he follows a mysterious figure into a subway and boards a strange-looking train. When the train comes to a stop, Billy meets a mysterious wizard in a cave that teaches him a most powerful word. And when the wizard screams at Billy to yell, Shazam, he is turned into the world's mightiest mortal, Captain Marvel. His new adventures start after curiosity gets the best of him, and he journeys to the top of the magical rock of eternity in order to glimpse that which is outside of creation. This act grabs the attention of a terrible, other-dimensional villain by the name of Mr. Mind, who arrives on Earth with the intent to eradicate humankind. Now, our world's newest hero, Captain Marvel, must face a seemingly unbeatable foe, but not without help from his newfound sister, Mary Marvel, a talking tiger by the name of Taki Tawny. They will absolutely have their hands full with Mr. Mind, but cannot forget about the devious, warmongering head of the Department of Technology and Heartland Security, Dr. Sivana. Can this marvelous family save the world? Or is it too late for us all? There you go. That's my synopsis of Shazam, the Monster Society of Evil. All right, so let's start with you, Chris.
One of the good things about it is it's got a real sense of a throwback. Like, it really feels like, Dick Tracy or Popeye or something from that era, like the late 30s, early 40s, even though it's not set in that era. I think it's Jeff Smith's art style, really cartoony, and his writing style as well. It just kind of evokes that sense of like 30s, 40s era comic strip adventure stories.
I mean, I got the same feeling. It was a very throwback, is a good word to describe it. It was almost like you were reading, just like you said, something from those years. It had the very clean art style. It felt like, not only that, the writing, like you mentioned, it just felt like a pulp hero story from that time. You don't have a whole lot of like casualties, stuff that we would see. They have a fight. All right. I didn't touch on this in the synopsis, but I mean, the Mr. Mind brings down these two humongous mechanical robots initially. Now, when I say humongous, I'm talking like the size of buildings. All right. Now we've ventured into building-sized villains and superheroes before.
I mean, they're towering over skyscrapers, basically.
Yeah.
Like
they're huge. It's got this interesting, like, okay, what could happen next? It was sci-fi mixed with magic, all sorts of interesting, other interesting aspects. But, these two huge robots, you're like, oh man, when Captain Marvel and these guys duke it out, buildings are going to be falling and people are going to be dying left and right, screams, terror, all that. None of that happened. It's not only that throwback feel to that era, but it's also kind of like, hey, this is a good superhero romp that doesn't have a lot of dark implication, in my opinion. Mark, you got anything to add to that?
And I just want to say, I love the art to this. The art has an innocence to it. It's a little on the childish side, but that's kind of what I liked about it. And you're right. It was a very simple superhero story. If you're playing source material bingo, there was no baby Darkseid, no syphilis. No, there was none of the things that we complain about in this. It was like we were talking about Plastic Man on the Lamb last week, where it's like a very simple premise carried out in a very creative and funny way. This one necessarily wasn't funny, but this does harken back to, very straightforward, black and white, bad is bad, good is good, and we want to get behind the good guys and see them thump the bad guys.
Mm-hmm. Talking about Captain Marvel, you guys mentioned how Billy Batson and Captain Marvel were almost two different entities. And I actually watched a video today where they were talking about what went into Jeff Smith's take on the character. He wanted Captain Marvel to be kind of a caretaker for Billy. Billy's homeless. He's living in a he's squatting in this this empty, completely vacant. I wouldn't call it an apartment. I mean, it's just run down piece of property. I mean, one of the first things when he takes Mary Marvel back there to show where he lives, he's like, "Where'd all the bugs go?" I mean, it's not a very pleasant place to live. And I mean, Mark, what do you think of the character of Captain Marvel in this story?
Oh, like I said, I liked Billy. Billy has a lot of spunk to him.
Okay.
It seems a little young. Like I think that took me back a little bit. I was like, you know, like because in the movie again he's like a teenager and it makes kind of sense what's happening. And this one he looks like he's 5 years old.
Yeah, he looks really, really young. I was thinking the same thing.
How are you? Like you shouldn't be surviving on the street. You should be dead.
Yeah, I think this is a younger version of Billy than has ever been in any of the other comics. I think he's normally like 10 to 12 years old.
Oh, okay.
Whereas here he looks like he's like between 7 and 8, maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm keeping with 5. He looks 5.
I cannot even think of Colton, my son, out and about, living on his own in an apartment.
Yeah, I was gonna say my son's just about to turn 5. Considering like he cries like he lost his ball that he got from the dollar store. And he cried for 3 different reasons within 5 minutes of being home. Yeah, he's not making it on the streets. Fuck that. You can suspend disbelief enough to think this kid could survive on the street, and he's deserving of the powers of Shazam. As far as Shazam, the hero, he's kind of like Superman without all the baggage.
Okay,
which I liked. So
yeah, and you're right.
There.
I mean, when he shows up, I don't want to call him one note. I don't want to call him one dimensional, but he does.
Pure. He's pure.
Yeah.
He's like a pure hero.
Pure is the right word. I mean, you could see him trying to do right by Billy if need be, and of course, he's tied to Billy in some way now. Wants to help Billy out as much as he can with whatever adventures or misadventures he gets into, because the whole plot of this story is because Billy's curiosity gets the best of him, even though he's told, don't go to the top of that mountain. Do not look outside of the point of creation or whatever the hell.
Following orders.
No, he's not. And he goes up there anyway and then proceeds to leave 2 big old footprints on the earth, there is some strange stuff that happens in this, and a lot of it you can just go ahead and wipe away by saying, well, that's magic, which I kind of like.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, basically he like broke the universe and that didn't seem too hard to understand. He broke the universe and let the bad guys out. Yeah.
So, Chris, Captain Marvel, what'd you think?
Yeah, I think the Superman without the baggage is pretty appropriate. I think he's just kind of the perfect specimen as far as, like, a peak human. He's obviously he can fly. He's got other powers as well, but he's basically I guess boring is kind of a bad word to use for him because I don't think that he's boring. But he's like the ideal hero.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody in the Red Letter Media, one of the guys in the Red Letter Media show during Half in the Bag referred to Superman as like child empowerment fantasy. And I don't necessarily get that with Superman, because Superman has a lot of baggage that like I could live without. If you wanted to be a superhero, and just be great, just be the superhero, I think like Shazam more fills the role of like childhood and child empowerment fantasy.
Agreed. When you're 10 years old and you're like, give me these powers, I'd love to become a superhero. You're flying around with your cape. This is what you're imagining. And this adventure too is almost like straight out of a child's mind. If you look at it, and I think that's what Jeff Smith is kind of known for, because when you read the Bone series, that's not exactly, heavy, thought-provoking stuff. It's
this seems like it's for idiots.
It's something that I could give to my child, and they enjoyed it. And when I actually read it myself, and I was like, this is actually pretty good. So he's got experience doing that, and it shows here as well. So this is right in his wheelhouse, I guess, is the short version of what I'm trying to say. All right, one of the things that I wanted to point out here about Billy Batson. Now, we just talked about Captain Marvel and how pure he is, and Billy Batson's definitely got his faults. Well, just like you said, he caused this whole issue. The whole 4 issues that we're reading is because of something that he did. But also, the end of this series, or the end of these 4 issues, also is attributable to something that Billy Batson did. He was the one that he could not become Captain Marvel inside the robot because of some kind of magical paradox. Just read the book. But the other thing is, there's a point.
He was explicitly told, don't cross the streams.
Do not. The other thing is, there's a a good quality to Billy Batson. At one point, he is he's outside of a circus, okay, and there's like this large line of ants going down the road, and somebody comes up and steps on him. He's like, no, what are you doing? Don't be stepping on the ants. Don't kill these insects. Well,
Those are his buddies.
He's got that good quality to him. Like, he doesn't want to harm anything. Even though he's got a pretty rough life, he's still got a very good heart. And at the end of the book, when the insects are trying to rule the world, guess who they see? They see Billy Batson trying to stop them and says, hey, wait a second. This is the guy that didn't step on us.
Have you ever read I think it's BC, the old comic strip. So anyway, one of the big jokes in BC was blank got scruples or blank got whatever. And when I saw the ants and like, oh, he didn't kill us, let him go, I wanted Billy to just kind of just look at the audience in the comic book and go, ants got scruples.
Oh, geez. Long way to get there, but we got there, ladies and gentlemen.
Everyone take a stretch. Everyone got to pee? All right, let's get back in the car.
All right. So, yes, Billy didn't step on the ants. Okay.
Ants got scruples.
Ants got scruples. Mary Marvel. Mary Marvel. Chris, do you have anything you'd like to say about Mary Marvel?
I thought it was interesting that Mary got some of the powers of her brother Billy, but like she remained a little girl. Unlike Captain Marvel taking Billy's place, Mary stayed the same. She had some of the powers, but she was still a little girl. She was still herself. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if that's something that Jeff Smith brought in just to this version of Shazam, or if that's something that has. I know Mary Marvel is a character that's been around for
she's been around
almost since the beginning. So I'm not sure if that's standard or if that's something he just did in this book. But I thought it was interesting.
She basically gets powers from him, like firing errant electricity. And then he loses the powers. Then she gives it back to him, but manages to, but holds on to the powers. Like she basically fires electricity at him, and now he's got powers. Which, again, I didn't want to think too hard about because it didn't make any sense. Well, I mean, think about it, right? One of their powers is being able to shoot electricity at people. How do you fire the power given electricity when you want to versus the kill people electricity? This was a problem for me, but again, I didn't want to shit all over what was a perfectly nice children's story, so I didn't think about it too much. Yeah. But then she fires the electricity back, and I would have thought, like, to me would have been a little bit stronger as a story beat. Would have been she like shoots him with the electricity, and now she's given up her powers to give to him so that he becomes Shazam again. To me, it just felt like they were running a bodega where they could just give anyone powers.
Well, I know in the current Shazam, his whole family has Shazam powers. I think that's kind of something that they did in the original Captain Marvel run.
Like his whole bloodline? Like his
No,
sisters?
like all of his adopted family, like his foster kids. They all have their own, like, Shazam powers.
Okay.
To me, is it just me, or does that not dilute it?
That's kind of what I thought, too. That's one of the reasons I don't like the new Shazam as much, I guess. But it's also kind of like, if you don't do that, he's just Magic Superman. So it gives another element to the story, I guess, that he's got a whole family. They're like a whole family of superheroes.
I know you didn't write it, so I'm not going to argue with you, but I disagree. I like the idea of Magic Superman.
So I'm looking at the Wikipedia here, and they're talking about the original concept. Mary Marvel is the alter ego of teenager Mary Batson, twin sister of Captain Marvel's alter ego Billy Batson. Like her brother, Mary has been granted the power of the wizard Shazam and has but to speak the wizard's name to be transformed into the superpowered Mary Marvel. Mark, anything to add on Mary Marvel that you thought of?
Again, I wish she had lost her powers because girls shouldn't be superheroes. No, just kidding.
That's horrible.
I think it's a stronger story point when somebody makes a sacrifice. There was just like, oh, you're broken. Here, let me fix you. Zoop, and here we go. Wow. I also don't understand why she stayed a little girl, which was adorable and ridiculous at the same time.
Chris, I don't know how far you've gone back in like DC Comics lore, but I know that if we took Mark on a just hopped in the time machine and went back to like 60s DC, his fucking head would explode.
Oh Lord. Yeah.
Why is this and what is this?
I can't read most of that Silver Age DC stuff.
It's tough, dude. I haven't.
Or the Marvel stuff, for that matter.
Yeah, well, it's tough to do because you have to really think about who they're writing for. 'Cause it ain't us.
Alex Sedano is my hero. Because this is a guy who's just like, who really does, like, you know,
he reads it so you don't have to.
His bread and butter is that era of comics, and it's like, how the fuck do you read this stuff, dude? We read the Kree Skrull War, and by the end of it, I wanted to drive my head into the fucking wall.
Where's the war? Man.
See, that actually, I'm sure that was terrible for you guys to read. I've never read it. But the concept of, like, the storyline being not the actual war, but the fact that they're using Earth as just like a stop, or as like a bargaining chip in the war. Like,
Mark came out of that with the same thing. I mean, that's kind of what he felt was the best beat of the whole story.
That's an interesting way to tell like a big galactic war story.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
They had to deal with Earth. It was blocking their view of Venus.
Yes, sir.
Where's Marvin the Martian when you need him?
One of the things I wrote down here was the fact that she's got like some abilities that are better than her brothers. She's not as strong, but she's definitely like faster. I've noticed that she makes a point to like run circles around him. And he's like, whoa, wait a second. What the hell's going on here? I thought that was an interesting aspect. I didn't realize that I figured that he would be like the ultimate and she would be kind of like, okay, well, she's quick. She's quick, but not as quick. So I thought that was pretty cool. But definitely inexperienced and staying a child, that adds a whole new dynamic to it. As she goes off and I think at one point she just decides to go fight those big robots. And Tani's like, whoa, no. Wait, don't, Captain Marvel, you need to do something about this right now. So interesting take, fun little introduction. And okay, let's talk about one of our villains, Dr. Sivana. Mark, what do you think of old Dr. Sivana here?
He cracked me up this one, because it was like, we talk about like Mark Russell, and Mark Russell always has like an agenda in his comics. And it was like, I could see like we need a villain for this. Okay, we're going to make somebody like a businessman and a politician, and let's make him short and awful and
looks like fucking Gollum.
It looks like Gollum in a suit. It's like no subtlety here at all. It's great.
He's basically the same size as Billy.
He is, isn't he? I mean, he's like this little geriatric thing that is supposed to inspire fear. And, he's this warmongering little snot.
He was a mad scientist originally, right?
Yes. I mean, if you talk about the iconic villain for Captain Marvel, it was always Dr. Sivana.
Really? You don't think it's Black Adam?
I think Black Adam has become that now.
Yeah.
I think because he's become so popular like in the last 10 or 15 years. But before that, I think it was always Dr. Sivana.
Yeah,
he's the villain in the movie, right?
Yes. It was. They were originally going to go with Black Adam, and what's his face? The Rock was supposed to be Black Adam, and they were like, "Hey, wait a minute, The Rock, we can't make The Rock the villain. He's popular." And so, for some fucking reason, they've decided to go with a Black Adam solo movie.
All right. I mean, I'll watch it, so whatever. I mean, Black Adam is kind of an anti-hero because he's become so popular, like every other, villain becomes popular. They turn into anti-heroes eventually.
There's a comic where I think it's like World War III or something like that, where he just he goes on a rampage and just destroying things.
I remember the first time I ever read anything with, I think, Black Adam in it was 52. I think that's when he really kind of exploded in popularity, it seems like. I know that when I left that series, I was like, oh shit, this is a character I need to pay more attention to. This is somebody I'd never even heard of, but I knew he, obviously the way he was written, he had a huge legacy behind him. The way they wrote that story with him involved, it made me pay attention, and made me look out, made me go look for more stuff with him in it. Captain Marvel, by the way, Captain Marvel, Dr. Sivana, Dr. Thaddeus Bodog Sivana, according to the fucking wiki here, Bodog. Thaddeus Bodog Sivana, a fictional supervillain appearing in comic books published by DC Comics, created by Bill Parker and C.C. Beck. The character first appeared in late 1939. It's the 1930s. Opposite superhero Captain Marvel in Whiz Comics number 2. So, yeah.
Was that accent you were just doing supposed to imply that that's way?
It's the
that's same
1930s.
issue as Captain Marvel first appeared, right?
You're right. First appearance was comics number 2. He was the first villain for Captain Marvel. So it's good. I think Jeff Smith did a good job characterizing bringing this guy to life. Although the Dr. Sivana from back then was, just like you said, this evil scientist. He definitely exaggerated features here in Jeff Smith's take.
Yeah. When I was looking through some of the supplemental material in the trade, because I'm reading it in trade paperback, there's a lot of stuff Jeff Smith talks about how he was writing this on the heels of 9/11. You can see instead of Homeland Security, it's Heartland Security. Like not too thinly veiled criticism of that stuff. That's the way he wanted to write Sivana in this, rather than being like super villain.
Do you like agendas in your comics? Come along over to DC. We've got tons of them for you. Where's Ronnie Adams right now? I need Ronnie Adams to start going, listen, take your politics out of my comic books and shove them up your ass.
The video I watched was talking about how the two robots were like an allusion to the Twin Towers. And a lot of like the geography, even though it's not set out right in this book, if you look at some of the geography, it's New York City,
right?
But it's not set out right at all. So
I can definitely see that.
I got a page that I want to read to you here and to close out my thoughts on Dr. Sivana, just to give you guys a great idea of who this guy is in this comic. So Mary Marvel is she's been captured, she's been duct taped, she can't say anything, and Dr. Sivana pulls out this little, I don't know if it's notes or what exactly it is, but he pulls it out. Says, "What's this, little girl? The alien creatures are really giant robots? All the more reason to keep them around a while longer. Robots are just machines, tools for powerful men, tools of war, and war is profitable." What a jerk.
Business people are bad.
Oh, yes.
They failed.
And at the end of this, what's funny is, I don't think Dr. Sivana's got much left in him after this, because he ends up getting outed by Billy at the end of this show. Of course, he tries to throw Mary Marvel off the top of one of those giant robots, if I remember right, in front of the media. So he doesn't have a whole lot going on.
He doesn't know, but he didn't know there was a camera on him when he did that, in his defense.
Okay. In his defense? In his defense.
In his defense, he was going to quietly murder a little girl.
Perfect. Mr. Mind, our interdimensional villain here. Mark, what do you think here?
Didn't we do this villain already in like The Tick or something? What was it where?
Did I do a Tick show?
What was it where where it was like they were controlling a giant? There was like a bunch of cockroaches controlling a robot. Oh gosh. Ooh. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Cockroaches controlling a robot.
God, what did we read where one of the villains... Oh, know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of the Powerpuff Girls.
Oh, okay. All right, now I think I might remember what you're talking about. That was not a comic. That was a TV party tonight, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Shout out to Alexis Hana.
Yes.
But yeah, that was my first thought. It was just like, oh, look, it's the bugs trying to take back over the Earth. Terrific.
Mm-hmm. All right, Chris, yeah. Mr. Mind, what'd you think?
Yeah, he looks really cool. Like when he first shows up, you don't get an idea of the scale.
You're thinking this like massive, huge, otherworldly, dimensional guys coming in.
Yeah.
And be screwed.
And also the first time you see him, he's looking at these monitors. He's got a headset on. He looks like he's going to be like a giant python, maybe. Mm-hmm. And then when he finally shows up, he's a worm. But yeah, pretty cool. They don't show him until the 4th issue. He gets a lot of hype built up before he finally shows up. I don't know how close this version of Mr. Mind is to the standard continuity, but he works well in this one. He's really more of like, Sivana is still sort of the main antagonist, just by virtue of how much more he's in the book and how much more he has to do. But yeah, I liked the Mr. Mind character. I like the way Jeff Smith drew him and everything.
Mm-hmm. I really wanted to be like, when they find out it's just a small worm, to just throw it on the floor and step on him. Be like, wow, that was easy.
Created by Otto Bender and C.C. Beck, Mr. Mind first appeared as a voice only in Captain Marvel Adventures 22. His first true appearance was in Captain Marvel Adventures 26 in August of 1943. So yeah, he was a Venetian worm, according to his original origin, and from Venus. So there you go. Monster Society of Evil. And there wasn't much of a society It was, just like you said, Chris, it's more like Dr. Sivana giving Captain Marvel and Mary Marvel a hard time. And then
there are monsters, but they're all just kind of running around doing their own thing, it seems like.
He runs, Captain Marvel has to fight off some like sentient alligators and fights off a few other.
I was going to say, on the Monster Society of Evil. Now, a couple of months back, I think it was last year, we read a real monster book, Monsters Unleashed.
That's true. And
that had some very creative looking monsters in this, like talking alligators. What the fuck? You call a book the Monster Society of Evil. I want to see like dragons and shit, not alligators in trench coats going, you want to buy a watch?
Is it okay if I eat your kid?
A friend of mine pointed out when I told him I was about to read this again that this book has what used to be his favorite comic book panel of all time, which is when Shazam or Captain Marvel is fighting the alligators in the circus.
I was just looking at this earlier.
We've lost. Quick, eat the children.
Yeah.
They know they've lost, so they're going to try and eat the children really quickly before they're defeated completely.
I thought it was going to be Captain Marvel sticking his head into the alligator's mouth and breaking its teeth.
Pretty slick. There's like, I don't know how many pages, 2 or 3 pages of just Captain Marvel trying to rescue these kids from getting eaten by these alligators. And they just don't give a shit, man. They're just like trying to pop these kids in the mouth and try and chew them up. So it's funny stuff.
Well, in their defense, kids are delicious.
You fucking I don't know what to say anymore. One of the big hooks, I think, right at the first issue that made me go, okay, what's going to happen next? That's kind of one of the things that a comic book has to do. It's got to hook you with you wanting to read more to find out what's going to happen. And it's when Captain Marvel goes up and tries to like fight one of the robots and he can't do shit to it. Yeah. Nothing. Can't do anything. I'm like, well, you're fucked, man. This is issue 1, dude. You're done. But you knew that there was obviously going to be somehow, some way that he was going to beat them. And I was, still by issue 3, issue 4, how's he going to beat these guys? And of course, everything comes to light, how all the insects are involved. And again, if it wasn't for Billy Batson being nice and not stepping on those ants at the time, we could have a different outcome for the story. So it just goes to show you being nice is worth something. It
goes to show you ants got scruples.
Ants got scruples. Ants got scruples. All right. Well, that's all the characters I wanted to cover. Mark, final thoughts on the book? Anything left unsaid you'd like to say?
It was a perfectly lovely story. It actually got me excited for the movie more so than it already was. It's like I feel like I say this every week, so I'm not gonna belabor the point. But you had your bad guys, you had a mystery, you had a worthy hero who, a worthy child who becomes a champion. You had a very fun sidekick character in Mary Marvel. And Tawny Talkie or Tony the Tiger, whatever the hell his name is.
Hey, there was a great joke in here, wasn't there?
Yes, there was. It was a perfect look. I didn't skip anything. It was a perfectly great story. I would recommend it to anybody looking for an easy read.
Let me ask you, since you're comparing Plastic Man on the Lam to this. If you could say which one you enjoyed.
Plastic Man was more sarcastic.
Okay. All right. Did you have one that you enjoyed more?
Depends. I think if you're looking for like a traditional comic book, if you're looking for a traditional comic book story, I would recommend Shazam. If you're looking for something to make you laugh, I would absolutely read Plastic Man. Okay. So you yourself, though, personally, is there one you prefer over the other? I know it's completely subjective, but I don't give a shit. I'll go with Plastic Man. You go with Plastic Man. Okay. Just because of the humor? Yeah. All right. I like to laugh. It's funny. Chris, final thoughts? It's a really solid superhero story. I'd almost say it's a really unique version of a superhero story because of the tone and the artwork and the fact that this is Shazam, or this is the Captain Marvel story, but it's completely outside of DC continuity. There's no mentions of Superman or Batman or anything about Central City or anything. This is all self-contained for, 48-page issues.
There's never been a sequel that I'm aware of. So it's all in one nice little package. And it's very entertaining. It's kind of an all ages book even. You could give this to a 10-year-old and they would probably like it just as much or even more than I did. I've never read Bone. Yeah, I had the big like phone book size collection of Bone, but I've never actually cracked it open and read it. So this gives me a little incentive because I liked this one enough that I kind of want to get to some more Jeff Smith stuff. Other specific things that I didn't get to talk about earlier, when Captain Marvel finally, is able to defeat the giant robots, I was not expecting that. I did not see that coming. Where he's basically transformed into Billy.
Oh yeah,
is transformed into a gigantic Captain Marvel, and he
again
just the robot. They have a pretty good fight going back and forth, but like I wasn't expecting that. That was surprising.
Mm-hmm. Magic. I'm telling you, that's what separates this book from Superman. All right.
Yeah.
One of the big things is Superman's weakness is magic. Well, yeah, he's a character as super as he is. He's bound by the laws of reality. In this, that's just about anything can happen because, hey, magic's at our disposal. That was one of my notes here. My final thoughts was like magic has a place here, and you can chalk stuff off as like, okay, well, magic, and a lot of that happens, and it doesn't bother me. That sometimes that could be shitty. I mean, that could be something that you don't, you don't like in a book. But go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, that was pretty much it. I do want to draw attention to one other thing. A runner-up for the Quick Eat the Children panel.
Okay.
Is the panel where the cat, Takitani, when he's transformed into the black cat, shows his cat butthole to these guys that are shooting at him.
Wait, I missed that.
Yeah, I noticed it because it's the only panel where he makes sure to draw a little brown dot underneath the tail of the cat.
Just like a fucking cat.
It's right after the Heartland security guys open fire on him and he gets away.
Oh, it's funny. That's exactly what a cat would do.
It can't be a coincidence. That had to be on purpose.
Well, okay. My final thoughts. You guys both covered quite a few of them. Like I said, a very standalone story. Magic definitely has a place here. It's pure. It's heartwarming. It's not dark and edgy. We don't have any of that really in here. Yeah, there's some scary stuff that kind of happens with the bugs, but again, it's a fun story about a kid becoming a superhero and actually having to rely on himself as a child instead of the superhero to try and foil the big bad. And at the very end of this, at the very end of the fourth issue, I mean, when you look at a lot of comics, that threat is still out there. We got the big bads. At some point, they're going to come back. But if you look at Billy Batson and Mary Marvel, and I'll just kind of read I'll kind of read some of the panels here as we close it out. Billy Batson and Mary Marvel are talking to the team of WHIZ. Okay. It's a news team that's in this city. And they helped them out basically. So anyway, Billy's kind of looking off the distance, and Mary comes up and says, "What's wrong?" And Billy says, "I've never been a part of any family before." And then Mary kind of gets a smile on her face and points out to the outside and says, "That sure is a beautiful sunset. You know what, Billy? I think we'll be all right." And Billy says, "Yeah, you're right." So when you look at the ending of this comic, it's not like, oh my gosh, what could be next? It's more like we can handle things, and we got a lot of good stuff ahead of us. So again,
I think it needs that Zack Snyder touch.
Okay. Well, I think our coverage of Captain Marvel, Shazam, the Monster Society of Evil, has come to a close. And I want to thank our guests for coming on here, Mark Radulich, Chris Armstrong. We'll get into plugs here. I don't think I have anything else to say there. So, Chris Armstrong, what would you like to plug, sir?
Yeah, you can just, if you'd like, you can follow me on Twitter at BrodyMan34, and then check out the UnspokenDecade.com 90s comic fan site.
Yeah, I've been following. I think some of your tweets been popping up about the Final Four. Boy, I bet things. Yeah, I'm sorry, sir.
Let's move on.
Well, Duke lost, so
Yeah, that's the only thing I've got to look forward to.
it's the only bright
To be
spot.
happy about.
Yeah. All right, Mark Radulich. I know we got a lot upcoming on the schedule. What do we have coming
Well,
up?
last week was Plastic Man on the Lamb. Damn You Hollywood Dumbo. And then we followed up with Metal Hammer of Doom, Children of Bodom. Tomorrow on the Damn You Hollywood, we'll review the new DC Warner Brothers movie Shazam. And then this past weekend was WrestleMania. Sorry, Wednesday. Mr. Toxic Masculinity will be on the Metal Hammer of Doom, Mr. Pat Mullen, and we're going to do wrestling music. We're all going to pick some of our favorite wrestling entrance musics and whatever else we like, and we're going to talk about it. It'll be a very nostalgic episode. It'll be a lot of fun. On Thursday, we're going to do a TV party tonight for WrestleMania 35, NXT New York, Ring of Honor in New Japan, Madison Square Garden, Bruce Pritchard. Whatever it was I went to over the weekend. And Friday, we're debuting a special 3-episode podcast. It'll be the 12th, the 19th, and the 26th. It's called Countdown to Endgame, hosted by Robert Winfrey. We're going to revisit the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, movie by movie, bit by bit, beat by beat, line after line. We're going to tackle things a little bit
Only
differently.
need 3 episodes for that?
Well, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So that was all there was room on the schedule for. So myself, Robert Winfrey, and I think Alexis Hana will all be on for that. That'll be a lot of fun. The following week, it's Hellboy week all week long. We're going to be looking at Batman, Hellboy, Starman. Then we'll be doing a Damn You Hollywood for the new Hellboy reboot. We're going to take a quick left turn to New Jersey and listen to the new Overkill.
Quick left turn.
Well, yeah, it's a quick left turn to New Jersey.
New Jersey, next left.
Overkill, The Wings of War, and then we've got The Long Road to Ruin for the old Hellboys 04 and 08 movies, and then part 2 of our countdown to Endgame. The week of the 22nd, it's another tossed salad week. Oh, tossed salad. Scrambled eggs. We've got Green Lantern, Planet of the Apes on source material. Why? Because why the fuck not? Tuesday, Damn You Hollywood. I won't be there. I'll be at Whitesnake, because here I go again, my friends, on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Meanwhile, back in the city, Rob Winfrey, Alexis Hana, and Jason Teasley will be reviewing the new Pet Cemetery on Damn You Hollywood. Metal Hammer of Doom, we're looking at the new Twar Hell. Thursday, I'll be at the Avengers. But if you can't get to the movies, you can watch both the Gotham season finale and the Orville season 2 finale, because that's both happening on those 2 days. And then finally, on Friday, is the third part of our countdown to Endgame. And last but not least, as we close out the month of April showers bring May flowers. We've got source material, Avengers, Forever, Tradition. Got a little lost there, sorry. And then we'll be doing Damn You Hollywood, Avengers, Endgame. If this is anything like Infinity War, we'll have 106 people on the panel, and the podcast will be 8 hours long. And then, speaking of the Orville, Jesse and I will be doing a TV party tonight instead of the Metal Hammer of Doom on May 1st. There'll be no Metal Hammer of Doom that week. Instead, we're going to be doing the Orville Season 2. It's the best show on television right now. You need to be watching it. It's so good. And Jesse and I are going to spend an hour with no pants on, just Donald ducking it, talking about how great this show is.
That's right.
May 2nd, Alexis Hano will be on TV Party tonight for the second part of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Yeah, nothing on Friday. And then Saturday, May 4th, is Canelo versus Daniel Jacobs on DAZN. I'm either going to be covering that with Pat Mullen, or I will be at a Kentucky Derby party, in which case I won't be home to watch it. I don't know what's going to happen. It's all very up in the air. All right, that's it. That's all my plugs.
Are you going to be on the Avengers Forever pod, Mark?
I'm on everything.
Well, you should start reading now. Because that is some dense material.
Oh, no.
I've read it twice, and I'm going to start reading it now, just to make sure I'm done in time.
For my Bone Thuggy and Harmony friend over there, Chris Armstrong, And the patriarch who says inappropriate things all the time, Mark Radulich.
It's my host.
It's host. Don't you fucking forget it. I'm Jesse Starcher. We're out of here. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Thank you all for joining us. Make sure to give that Radulich in Broadcasting Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts we have to offer. We are at home on Spreaker, but you can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and recently we have hit the air on Spotify. Find your favorite podcast platform and type in RADULICH to subscribe for some great content. If you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word. And as always, we appreciate any feedback and look forward to entertaining you again soon.
Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Bitch, sit down.
All right, you guys got any questions or anything before we jump into this?
Whatever's in your yard stays in your yard.
That's not a question.
No, they're like, do you know where our hose went?
Mark has it in his hands.
Yeah, I like to think you're watering your lawn when they're asking you.
I don't want it in the middle of this. My husband's an idiot. See, here's the thing. I should have looked up, and made sure I understood the definitive history of Captain Marvel. I just know.
I don't want you to do 8-hour podcasts anymore, but I remember back when you did 8-hour podcasts, you also used to do research. Keep Captain Marvel.
I would, but
You gotta keep them separate, man.
What is this gender bias here? Jesse Starcher. Gender bias in your parenting, sir.
So I'm going to take him to something that my son seems to be interested in. How's that? There you go. It's not my fault. It's his. Blame it on the kids. Anything else there, Mark, you'd like to say before I go on?
It's my hose. You're my friend, I like you. Because you're my friend.
There's no fucking way you just came up with that off the top of your head.
Honestly, who hasn't punched a hole in the universe at least once?
I tried to do homework with Caleb tonight. I wanted to punch a hole in the universe. Trust you me. Fucking math. 3rd grade math can kiss my ass.
So, Chris,
yeah.
It's my first. Let me tell you, it's my hose. Second,
all right, weekly bread and water discussion here. What do you want, Colt? Go watch the show. You guys still watch The Scary House? Okay, all right. Shut the door. Love you, buddy. Colton, Mark, dang it. I can't even get my damn... Now I'm calling you my kids' names. Fuck you, Mark Radulich.
If you haven't gone a day without wanting to murder at least one child, you've never been a parent.
Now, see, here's the thing. If I say the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, the opinions shared on such is not a representation of what the Radulich and Broadcasting Network is. He's the fucking guy who pays the bills, ladies and gentlemen, so apparently I can't get around that.
It's my hose, goddammit.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans. 30% of Americans who are planning home improvements of $5,000 or more will pay for those renovations with a high-interest credit card. That may not be a great idea. A better idea may be to take cash out of your home with a Quicken Loans 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. The rate today on our 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 4.5%, APR 4.78%. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
Rates subject to change. Pay 2% fee to receive this discounted rate. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
The all-new Toyota RAV4 asks, what if? What if your ride was refined and rugged at the same time? Introducing the all-new RAV4 Hybrid. 208 combined horsepower and standard all-wheel drive make it the most powerful RAV4. Plus, with its head-turning style and breakaway speed, it's bound to change the way you think of a hybrid. The all-new RAV4 Hybrid. Toyota. Let's go places. Horsepower. Ratings achieved using the required premium and leaded gasoline with an octane rating of 91 or higher. Premium fuel is not used. Performance will decrease.